The wind tore across the snowy plains like a living thing, rattling the fences of the old ranch and snatching a breath from anyone brave enough to stand against it. The sky was heavy with clouds, a gray so deep it pressed down on the world like a weight you could almost feel in your chest. And there, against that bleak horizon, a figure stumbled across the frostbitten field, a woman barefoot, trembling, her white dress drenched in snow. "Dad, Dad, look," came a small voice, high-pitched with awe and confusion. Hank Callahan's heart skipped a beat. He was used to seeing the harshness of winter, the merciless bite of cold, the unforgiving cruelty of life on the frontier. But this was something else entirely. He squinted through the storm. Snowflakes slapped against his face like icy fingers. His son, Ethan, tugged at his sleeve, pointing at the woman who had finally collapsed near the edge of the frozen creek. She's... I know her," Ethan whispered, his voice trembling. Hank froze. His blood ran cold, not from the wind, but from the realization. The words his son had spoken were impossible, yet somehow painfully unmistakable. Hank had spent years trying to bury the past he had hoped was lost forever, and now, staring at a barefoot woman shaking in the snow, he felt that past clawing its way back to life. "Ethan, what do you mean, you know her?" Hank asked, his voice rough, torn between disbelief and fear. She's the girl from the story, Dad. The one you told me about, the one who disappeared that night." Ethan's teeth chattered, his words nearly lost to the wind. Hank's hands went to his face. He felt like the world had tilted, throwing him off balance. His mind raced. That night, the fire, the laughter, the betrayal, the cold, bitter truth he had tried to forget. It had all been buried in silence, in secrecy, in the kind of pain you could only carry alone. And now, standing barefoot in the snow, she was real, alive. Hank took a step forward, his boots crunching against the frozen earth. But something stopped him. Her eyes, blue as ice, wide with terror and exhaustion, locked on his. Recognition flickered there, and in that instant, Hank knew she remembered. She knew. Who are you?" she whispered, her voice barely audible over the wind. Her lips were blue, and her body shivered uncontrollably. "My name is Hank Callahan," he said slowly, as if speaking too quickly might shatter this fragile moment. "And you're safe now. Come closer." But she flinched back, as though the very air around him carried the weight of some unspoken danger. Hank's heart sank. He had hoped she would run to him, would find the father she had never known. Yet instead, fear anchored her in place, the kind of fear that comes from betrayal, from years of being hunted, from knowing that the world can be cruel to the innocent. Ethan stepped closer, his small frame determined. "Mom says we have blankets. Hot cocoa. You can come home." Hank's throat tightened. Home. The word was heavy with meaning now, loaded with the years of guilt he had carried. Could he really offer her home after all the mistakes he had made? Could he really promise safety when the world outside had been so merciless? She looked at the boy, and then at Hank, and something in her gaze softened, just slightly, but it was enough. Slowly, painfully, she took a step forward, her bare feet leaving pale, bloody marks in the snow. Hank's heart pounded. Every memory, every regret, every moment of shame and helplessness came crashing back, and he realized that this woman, the barefoot bride of the snowy night, was not just a stranger. She was the embodiment of a truth he had run from, a truth that demanded justice, courage, and the kind of love only a man who had lost everything could offer. He reached for her hand. His fingers hovered an inch away from hers, and she flinched, but didn't pull away. That hesitation, that fragile trust, was enough to ignite a spark in Hank's chest, a spark that had been buried under years of cold, hard survival. "We're going to get you inside," he said. "Warm. Safe. You won't have to run anymore." Her eyes met his, searching, questioning, and for a heartbeat, Hank saw all the pain, all the fear, and all the hope he'd been too afraid to face. She wanted to believe him, and he had to find the strength to deserve that belief. As he lifted her gently into his arms, snow melting into the fold of his coat, the wind seemed to howl around them, as if mourning the years lost and celebrating this impossible reunion. And then, Just as they began moving toward the house, Ethan's small voice rang out again, almost as if from nowhere. "Dad, she's the one who was supposed to marry. Uncle James, right?" Hank froze mid-step. His heart seized. This revelation, whispered by a child too young to fully understand its weight, ripped through him like lightning. The past was no longer just memory. It was a living, breathing storm at his feet. And in that moment, as the snow swirled violently around them, Hank realized that the Rayall journey was just beginning. Hank thought he could protect her, that he could finally make amends. But the moment Ethan whispered her connection to his late brother, Hank felt the ground of his carefully built life crumble beneath him. Who had tried to keep her hidden all these years? And why was she only appearing now, in the dead of winter, barefoot and alone? The fire crackled in the hearth, filling the cabin with a warmth that felt almost alien after the frozen hell outside. Hank had wrapped her in every blanket he could find, but she shivered still, her eyes darting to the shadows on the walls, as if expecting danger to emerge from the flickering light. "You're safe now," Hank said firmly, his voice steady, but inside his heart raced. Every instinct screamed that safety was temporary. "No one's going to hurt you here. I swear it." She pulled the blanket tighter around her shoulders and shook her head. "You don't understand. They'll find me." Her voice was barely a whisper, but it carried the weight of years of terror. Hank knelt in front of her, keeping his eyes level with hers. "Who will find you? Who are you running from?" Her lips trembled. "It doesn't matter. I can't stay anywhere too long. Not after what happened." Ethan, sitting cross-legged by the fire, tilted his head with the curiosity only a child could muster. "But you look like someone I've seen in the old photo Dad keeps in the living room. The one with Uncle James, the bride. It's you, isn't it?" The woman froze. For a long moment, it seemed she might scream, might flee, but then, slowly, her gaze fell to the boy. I thought everyone had forgotten," she said softly. I thought if I came back, it would destroy everything." Hank felt a lump in his throat. Every word she spoke pulled open wounds he had spent decades trying to seal. He remembered that night, the night his brother James had disappeared, leaving behind only whispers of betrayal and heartbreak. He remembered the empty chapel, the silent townsfolk, and the rumors that had poisoned their family name. "She's telling the truth, Dad," Ethan said, almost pleading. "She's real. She's been part of our story all along." Hank's jaw tightened. He wanted to believe, but the world had taught him caution. "We need the full story," he said. "All of it. No secrets." The woman swallowed hard, staring into the fire as though it might swallow her whole. "I was supposed to marry James," she admitted finally. "But the night before, something terrible happened. They took me. They lied to everyone. Said I ran away. Said I didn't want him. I had no choice." Hank's hands curled into fists, rage and guilt intertwined, making his chest burn. "Who did this?" She shook her head, tears streaking her pale face. "I can't. They have power. Influence. They'll ruin anyone who helps me. That's why I had to stay hidden. I moved from town to town, lived in barns and shelters, anywhere I could vanish, but now I ran out of places, and I had to come here." Ethan's small voice cracked the silence. "Then you're family too, aren't you? If James was your husband, you belong here with us." The word struck something deep in her, a mixture of hope and terror. She wanted to believe, but the shadows of betrayal had etched themselves into her bones. Every step toward trust felt like walking on glass. Hank's mind raced. The woman before him was not just someone wronged. She was a symbol of the lies and injustices that had haunted their family for decades. And now, she was in his home, barefoot in the snow, drenched in trauma, yet stubbornly alive. "We can help you," Hank said finally, his voice steady. "We'll protect you. But we need to know everything, names, places, people. We can't fight shadows if we don't know who they are." She swallowed, fear and determination warring in her eyes. "If I tell you, they'll come after you. Your family, Ethan, everyone you love." Hank nodded slowly. "Then we'll fight. I don't care who it is. No one threatens my family or anyone who suffered injustice. Not anymore." For a moment, the storm outside seemed to pause. as if waiting for her to speak. And then she did. She told him everything. The night she was taken, the lies that spread through town, the betrayal by people they all trusted, and the years she spent hiding. Every word was a knife to the chest, but also a spark of clarity. They ruined everything, she said finally, voice shaking. But I never gave up. I never stopped hoping that someone would remember, someone would care. Hank's hands trembled as he clenched them together. I remember, he said quietly. I always remembered. And now it's time we fix this. Together. Ethan's eyes shone. Yeah, we can do it. We'll show them they can't hide the truth anymore. The woman looked at the boy, then at Hank, then back at the fire. A fragile smile flickered on her lips, the first sign of trust she had shown in years. But trust was only the beginning. The real battle was about to begin. A sudden knock at the cabin door froze him mid-breath. The wind rattled the frame, sending a shiver down Hank's spine. Who could that be? The woman whispered, fear gripping her throat. Hank moved cautiously toward the door, heart pounding. It's too early for visitors. Ethan, stay back. He opened the door just a crack, peering into the gray storm. The snow swirled, and for a split second, all he saw was emptiness. But then a shadow moved, tall, menacing, watching, waiting. Hank's breath caught. This wasn't just a knock. This was a warning. Someone had come for her, and they would not leave empty-handed. The shadow at the door was silent, but Hank knew. Someone powerful, dangerous, and relentless had tracked her to the Callahan ranch. They had come for the barefoot bride, and no wind or storm could stop what was coming next. Would they survive the night, or would the darkness finally catch up to her? Absolutely. Here's part 3, where the tension skyrockets. The past collides with the present, and Hank faces dangerous forces while protecting the barefoot bride. Part 3, the storm breaks. The shadow at the door didn't move. Hank's hand hovered over the latch, knuckles white, heart hammering in his chest. Every instinct screamed that this was no ordinary visitor. Whoever it was, they had come for her, and for all the secrets she carried. Stay behind me, Hank whispered to the woman, his voice low and steady, but every fiber of his body thrumming with fear and resolve. Ethan clutched his mother's hand, wide-eyed, sensing the danger without fully understanding it. The wind howled outside, rattling the cabin, and then the knock came again, louder, sharper, demanding. Hank swallowed hard. All right, let's see who doesn't believe in ghosts, he muttered, stepping outside. The snow bit into his face like knives. He squinted through the storm. The figure emerged, a tall man, dressed in black, his coat dusted with snow, face shadowed beneath a wide-brimmed hat. But it wasn't the wind or snow that froze Hank in place. It was recognition. You, Hank said through clenched teeth, after all these years, I should have known you wouldn't stop. The man smiled thinly, a cruel curl of lips. Callahan, he said, voice smooth and cold. Some debts don't fade with time. Some truths are too dangerous to forget. Hank's blood ran cold. This was the man, the one who had orchestrated the lies that destroyed her life, that shattered James's family, that had kept the truth buried for decades. He had power in the town, influence over people who should have protected them, and now he had found her. You won't touch her, Hank said, voice steady despite the storm's rage. I swear it. The man chuckled. Touch her? No, Callahan. I've already done worse. But she has something that belongs to me. His eyes flicked toward the cabin, where she huddled behind Hank, shivering and silent. Hank felt the weight of responsibility crushing him. He realized, with terrifying clarity, that the danger wasn't just about survival. It was about justice. If he faltered now, if he let fear win, she could be taken again. And this time, there might be no escape. Inside, she trembled, and for the first time, her mask of control fear broke. Hank, we can't. He won't leave us alone. He'll come inside. Hank grabbed her hand firmly, pulling her closer. Not if I stop him first. The man stepped closer, boots crunching in the snow. I gave you a chance, Callahan. A chance to stay silent, to forget the past. But some people need be reminded that loyalty is expensive. Hank squared his shoulders. I've paid my dues, you liar, and now it's your turn. In a sudden movement, the man lunged. Hank barely sidestepped, feeling the rush of cold air as a shadow passed where he had been. He stumbled backward, but regained his balance. Fists clenched, mind racing. He had trained for hard winters, for cattle drives, for storms, but nothing had prepared him for a man who thrived on fear and deception. Run! Hank shouted to the woman, but she didn't move. Her eyes met his, wide with terror, and then something else. Resolve. She wasn't the same helpless girl the world had tried to crush. Years of hiding, surviving, and enduring had forged her into someone capable of fight, even if her body was exhausted. Ethan, hiding behind a barrel, whispered, "Dad, what do we do?" "Watch," Hank said, voice tight. "Learn how truth fights lies." The man reached for something inside his coat. Hank tensed. Whatever it was, it could end them all. Then, just as the first snowflake struck the ground, the woman stepped forward, barefoot in the snow, her blue eyes blazing. "You don't scare me anymore," she said, her voice firm, carrying through the storm. "I've spent years running, hiding, being nothing, but not tonight, not anymore." The man's laugh was low and dangerous. "Bold words, little bride. Let's see if they hold up." Hank felt a surge of pride and fear. This woman, once shattered, terrified, silenced, was standing tall, ready to face the monster that had haunted her. He had spent decades trying to protect her from a world that had failed her. Now, she was stepping into the fight with him. The confrontation was sudden, brutal. Snow swirled around them, whipping across the frozen plains as fists and anger collided. Hank fought with the desperation of a man defending everything he loved. Every strike, every maneuver was powered not by skill alone, but by the resolve to protect truth, justice, and innocence. And she fought beside him. Years of fear couldn't erase courage. Each step she took, each blow she struck, chipped away at the control the man had maintained over their lives. She was no longer a victim. She was a force. The man stumbled, surprised by her ferocity. Hank seized the opportunity, tackling him to the snow. The wind roared, drowning out their grunts, their curses, their battle cries. And in that moment, Hank realized something profound. The fight wasn't just about survival. It was about reclaiming what had been stolen. Truth, dignity, family, hope. Ethan, from his hiding place, whispered softly, almost in awe, "They're unstoppable together." The man snarled, struggling beneath Hank's weight. "This isn't over," he hissed, but the conviction in Hank and the woman's eyes was a wall stronger than fear, lies, or deception. Finally, the man broke free for a moment, glancing toward the dark horizon. He realized that the world had shifted. What had been hidden, buried, or silenced was no longer under his control. With a final, furious curse, he turned and disappeared into the storm, leaving Hank, the woman, and Ethan standing in the swirling snow. Exhausted, battered, but victorious, for now. The woman sank to her knees, shivering, tears freezing on her cheeks. Hank dropped beside her, wrapping his coat around her once more. "You did it," he said softly, voice hoarse. "You fought, you survived, and you're free." She looked at him, the weight of years of fear finally easing. We survived together." Ethan ran forward, hugging them both. "See, I told you, we can face anything if we stick together." Hank smiled faintly, but the storm outside reminded him that danger had only been postponed. The man would return. He always did. But something had changed. Truth had a power lies could not erase. And that gave them hope. The fire crackled again, but it no longer seemed fragile. It roared like the courage inside them all, a beacon against the darkness. As they tended to their wounds and caught their breath, a distant whistle echoed across the snowy plains. It wasn't the wind. It was deliberate, a signal. And somewhere beyond the storm, more of the man's allies were closing in. The battle had been won, but the war was far from over. Could they withstand the coming storm, or would the shadows finally claim what remained of their courage? The snow had finally eased into a quiet, relentless drizzle, leaving the world coated in a layer of pale, glistening white. The storm outside the Callahan ranch had passed, but inside, the air was thick with tension. Every heartbeat, Every creak of the old cabin floorboards reminded Hank that the battle was far from over. The barefoot bride, her name, she had finally whispered to him just hours ago, was Lila, sat by the fire, wrapped in layers of blankets. Her eyes, once haunted and hollow, now burned with determination. The fear that had once made her fragile and silent was gone, replaced by a fierce resolve that both frightened and inspired Hank. "We can't wait for him to come to us again," Hank said, pacing the cabin. His voice was low, steady, but edged with the raw intensity of a man who had spent years hiding from a past he now had confront head-on. "If we do, he'll never stop. Lila, we need a plan. Tonight we survived. Tomorrow we end this." Lila nodded, her bare feet tucked beneath her on the floor, her lips pressed in a determined line. "I know who he is connected to, the people who protected him, covered his tracks for decades. The town, they're all part of it. But there's someone inside the sheriff's office, a friend of James, who has always hated him. He can help us." Hank's eyes narrowed. "Do we trust him? After everything?" She met his gaze with unflinching intensity. "We don't have a choice. Either we take this chance, or he wins." Again, Hank drew in a slow, deep breath. Every instinct screamed caution. Every memory of betrayal and injustice tugged at him. But he knew she was right. Hope was dangerous, but necessary. And if there was even the smallest chance to reclaim what had been stolen from them, they had to take it. The plan came together like the pieces of a puzzle. Hank would stay with Ethan, fortifying the ranch and creating distractions if the man's allies came for them again. Lila, guided by the insider in the sheriff's office, Deputy Collins, a grizzled man with a lifetime of grudges against the corrupt, would infiltrate the town, gather evidence, and expose conspirators who had ruined their lives. Ethan, sensing the weight of what was happening but unwilling to be left behind, insisted on helping. "I can be a lookout. I can watch the road. Dad, I'm not scared." Hank chuckled, ruffling his son's hair. "You're braver than I ever was at your age. But this is dangerous, Ethan. We're counting on you to stay hidden and smart." Night fell over the ranch, heavy and quiet, broken only by the distant howls of wolves and the occasional groan of the wind through the trees. Lila stood by the door, her coat cinched tight, boots strapped over her feet for the first time in years. Every step she took felt symbolic. She wasn't the frightened girl who had stumbled barefoot through snow. She was taking control, reclaiming her life. Deputy Collins was waiting in the woods, emerging from the shadows like a figure from another time. He was older than Hank, with scars etched into his face and a deep, unwavering resolve in his eyes. "I've been waiting for this day," he said quietly. "I've hated him for as long as I've known James. Tonight, we fix what's been broken for decades." Lila nodded. "We have proof, documents, letters, witnesses, but it's risky. If he suspects, if he knows we're coming, they'll try to stop us." Collins glanced at the horizon, then back at her. "We'll be ghosts. Move fast. Strike hard. And when the truth comes out, there's no going back." Hank, from the porch of the cabin, watched as Lila and Collins disappeared into the night. A storm of emotions surged through him. Pride, fear, and something like relief. For the first time in years, the possibility of justice felt within reach. Hours later, the town was silent, wrapped in the heavy, oppressive quiet of pre-dawn. Lila moved through alleys and shadows, her every step calculated, every heartbeat focused. She had spent years running from the lies that had stolen her life, and now she was walking straight toward them, armed with truth, courage, and determination. Inside the sheriff's office, Collins worked quickly, unlocking files and gathering evidence, whispering instructions to Lila as they pieced together decades of corruption. Each document, each photo, each witness statement was a dagger aimed straight at the heart of conspiracy. Suddenly, a sound, the soft click of a door opening. Lila froze. Shadows shifted. Her pulse quickened. For a split second, panic threatened to take her over, but she forced herself to stay calm. "Over here," Collins whispered, dragging her into a small storage room. The door clicked shut behind them. Outside, footsteps echoed. Someone was moving through the office. Too close, too fast. Lila's heart pounded. She thought of Hank, of Ethan, of the ranch where her new life was waiting. She had come too far to fail now. This was her chance, to confront the lies, to reclaim her name, to bring justice to the people who had tormented her for decades. Minutes felt like hours. Every creak, every whisper wind through the office made her flinch. And then, just as she was about to step out, a shadow fell across the window. The man, tall, cruel, impossible to ignore, was watching. His presence was a promise of danger, a reminder that the past would not go quietly. He had been waiting for this, anticipating her every move, and now the confrontation they had long feared was inevitable. Lila swallowed hard. She had no choice but to face him. She had spent years running from the fear, from the injustice, from the shadows of her past. Tonight, she would fight not just for herself, but for everyone who had been wronged. Colin's voice broke through her thoughts. It's now, Lila. No turning back. Strike for truth. Strike for justice. She nodded, heart pounding. Every nerve alive with fear and determination, she stepped from the shadows into the first light of dawn. As Lila and Deputy Collins prepared to expose the truth, the man's silhouette appeared at the office doorway, his eyes blazing with fury. Every secret, every lie, every betrayal was about to collide in a final, explosive confrontation. Would justice prevail, or would the shadows of the past finally consume them all? Absolutely. Here's part 5, the thrilling conclusion where justice is served. Truths are revealed, and hope and resilience shine through. Part 5, Justice in the Snow. Dawn broke over the town like a slow, cautious promise, the pale light spilling across frost-covered rooftops. Inside the sheriff's office, tension crackled in the air like electricity. Lila's heart pounded so loudly she could hear it over the quiet hum of the building. Every nerve in her body screamed that the man, the one who had destroyed her life and tried to control her fate, was watching, waiting for the moment to strike. The shadow appeared first at the doorway, tall, broad-shouldered, and impossibly cold. He surveyed the room with a look that made Lila's blood run cold. Well, the little bride thinks she can change the story, he sneered. Do you really believe a few pieces of paper can undo decades of power? Lila stepped forward, her chin lifted, her eyes blazing. It's not just paper, she said. It's truth, and truth has power you'll never understand. Collins flanked her, fists clenched, ready to protect her. Step away from her, he said. We have the evidence. We're calling the sheriff, the mayor, everyone. Your lies end today. The man laughed, a low, cruel sound that echoed off the walls. You think you can stop me? You think the town cares about truth after all these years? Lila's voice was steady, unwavering. Some of us do. Some of us never stop caring. The confrontation erupted suddenly. He lunged, and Collins met him head-on, shoving him back. Papers flew across the room as the struggle began, but Lila didn't hesitate. She grabbed the files, photographs, letters, witness statements, and held them high. Look at this, she shouted. Look at the truth, the lies, the manipulation, the betrayal. The town owes me justice, and I won't stop until it's paid. The man staggered back, momentarily blinded by the light of truth shining in Lila's eyes. His grip on power, on fear, on deception, faltered. People outside had begun to notice the commotion. Voices called out from the street. Curious neighbors, the ones who had once whispered rumors in shadowed corners, now gathered, drawn by the storm of revelation. And then the sheriff appeared. He was a stern man, seasoned by years of law, but even he could not hide his shock. Callahan, Lila, he said, eyes scanning the room, then resting on the files. This is evidence? You're telling me, after all these years? Yes, Lila said, her voice firm, unwavering. After all these years. They lied. They covered up crimes. They stole my life. But it ends now. The man roared, fury breaking through his veneer of control. You think this proves anything? I am untouchable. But he was wrong. The room, once silent with fear, now filled with witnesses, with truth, with courage. The townspeople stepped forward, one by one, recounting what they had seen, what they had heard, what they had been too afraid to say before. The web of lies unraveled faster than he could comprehend. Hank arrived just then, boots crunching to the snow outside the office doors. Ethan clutched his coat, eyes wide with a mixture of pride and fear. "Dad," he called. "We're here. She's not alone." Hank's voice boomed through the office, steady and resolute. "This ends now. No more lies, no more fear, no more running. The truth is here, and we're not letting you take it away." The man's face twisted, realizing the tide had turned. He tried to escape, but the sheriff's deputies, now armed with evidence and the courage of the community, blocked every exit. The power he had wielded for decades crumbled before him. Lila took a step forward, feeling years of fear and pain falling away with every breath. "You can't hide anymore," she said, her voice carrying over the snow outside, through the town, into the hearts of everyone listening. "We remember. We care. Justice will not be denied." The man's resistance faltered. For the first time in decades, he saw himself powerless. He was arrested, handcuffed, and led away, leaving the storm of lies behind him. Hank wrapped an arm around Lila as she finally sank to the floor, exhausted, relieved, triumphant. Ethan ran forward, hugging them both tightly. "You did it," he shouted, tears freezing on his cheeks. "We did it." Lila looked up at Hank, her eyes bright with gratitude and something more, trust, love, hope. "You kept me safe," she said softly, "even when I thought no one could." Hank smiled, brushing snow from his coat. "We kept each other safe," he said. "You didn't run away. You faced it all. You fought for your life, for truth, for justice. That makes you stronger than anyone I know." For the first time in years, Lila allowed herself to smile, a real smile that reached her eyes. The fear, the running, the hiding, it was gone. She was free. The townspeople, once silent in the face of injustice, now came forward to offer apologies, support, and acknowledgement of the truth. The shadow that had hung over their lives dissipated like mist under the morning sun. Hank, Lila, and Ethan stood together outside the sheriff's office, watching the pale winter sun rise over the snow-covered town. The world felt different, lighter, filled with possibility. Lila bent down and touched the snow, bare fingers leaving imprints on the ground. She looked at Hank and Ethan. "I lost so many years, but maybe I found a new beginning." Hank nodded. "It's never too late. The past doesn't have to define us. Courage, truth, and love, those are what matter. And now we can build something real." Ethan grinned, eyes shining. "And we're a family, no matter what." As the snow melted into sunlight, the trio walked back toward the Callahan Ranch, together. The winter storm had passed, the shadows had been defeated, and a new chapter awaited. A chapter filled with hope, resilience, and the knowledge that even in the darkest of winters, light and justice could prevail.